Well, good morning, my algebra people. Today we're going to be doing 4-2 part 1 and part 2 using intercepts. Well, last week we talked about what a linear function is. A linear function has a constant change in x and y. So it goes up and over or down and over, always consistently between each point, right? But now let's take a look at how do we find x and y intercepts on a line. First of all, what is an x-intercept? Well, an x-intercept, as in football, when you intercept a ball, when you catch it in possession of it at a specific point. Well, on here, this is when the point intercepts or collides with the x-axis, all those green points. And we could label those along with the y-intercepts are all of the y points on the y-axis. So if I have an x-intercept right here, we would call this -6, 0, right? This one would be -4, 0, or 1, 0, or 4, 0. What do they all have in common? You're right, that the x value is whatever it is on the x-axis, but the y value is always 0, always 0. Let's take a look at y-intercepts. When a y-intercept happens, the x has to be 0. So this would be 0, 6. And this would be 0, 3. And this is going to be 0, 2, -2. And 0, -5, right? Again, what they have in common, when you find the y-intercept, the x has to be 0. So when I have a line on a graph, I just need 2 good points. And what better points to have than ones that are on each axis, right? So if I look at this line and I look for what the y and x intercepts are, well, on the y-axis, it has to be when x is 0, so this would be 0, 5. And the x-axis means that y has to be 0, so this is -4, 0. So our 2 good points happen to be an x-intercept and a y-intercept. So let's remind ourselves of this again. You find the x-intercept when y is 0, right? And you find the y-intercept when x is 0. So let's go ahead and find our x and y intercept using a graph. When we look at this graph, we see it goes through the points -4 for the x-axis and -3 for the y. So for -4, I would write that -4, 0. And for -3, I'd write it 0, -3. Go ahead and try this one and then check your solution. Go ahead and pause the video here. How did you do? Did you get that the x-intercept is 5, 0 and the y-intercept is 0, 2? Now let's take a look at standard form. We've been solving for y for quite some time now. Now we're just going to look at standard form. And standard form says that I have an ax and a by equals c, where a and b are all whole numbers. That's why they're capitalized. They're not fractions. All of these are examples of standard form. 2x plus 4y equals 8, -4x plus 5y equals -20, and then 6x minus 3y equals 1/2. Notice that c does not have to be a whole number. So why do we put it in standard form? Well, first we put it in standard form so that we can solve for our x and y intercepts. Let's see what this looks like. if I have it in this form, I just need to move over my 2x, and then I can put it in standard form. Remember, alphabetical order, x, y, and then c. Let's go ahead and try this one. Put it in standard form, please. Did you get negative 3x minus 5y equals negative 15? I hope so. So now that we get it in standard form, let's find our x and y intercepts without a graph, right? And we can do this because we know if we want to find the x-axis, the y value has to be 0. That means we simply plug in 0 for the y value. And anything times 0 eliminates. So I can just solve for the x value. Kind of mathematical, isn't it? So now we know the one good point. We have to find the y-intercept now when x is 0. So when I multiply by 0, the x values go away, and I just solve for the y, giving me my y-intercept of 2. Go ahead and try this one. Pause the video here and see how you do. So we're going to make a t table first. When I want to solve for x, y is 0. I plug in 0 for y, which means it just goes away, and solve for x. Same thing when I want to solve for the y-intercepts, x has to be 0. So it eliminates the x values. We can solve for y, getting negative 6. All right, you try. Find the x and y intercepts for these. First in a graph form. All right, let's see how you did. And now in standard form. Go ahead and check your work. Okay, let me know if you did not get these answers so we can walk you through. Now, on to part 2.